Bodyweight Squat. This is a foundational movement, as mastering the squat can help you with development and strengthening of the quads, the hamstrings, the core, the upper back, the glutes, so many things. It is a compound movement, meaning it requires the entire body to complete this movement. Mastering it at the body weight level is going to help you to excel when you start to add equipment, and it will just help you with a variety of other movements as well. So the first thing you want to take into consideration before performing a bodyweight squat is core bracing. Core bracing is very difficult for a lot of people because there's so many different ways to teach it. So I'm just going to go through the way that I learned how to do it and the way that has been beneficial for me to maintain pelvic floor strength, protect my lower back, and to help work my core. A lot of people look at core bracing as like sucking it in. So suck it in, right? So I'm making my stomach smaller, so to speak. But core bracing is really providing the stability that your body needs in order to go down and come back up for the squat movement. But it's very, very important when you're doing abdominal movements. It's very important when you're doing any sort of compound movement that your core is braced properly. Bracing your core is not just about sucking it in. It is about activating your transverse abdominals and providing that intra-abdominal pressure that can help you be a very firm foundation for this entire movement. So one of the ways that I learned how to brace my core properly was to blow out all of my air. So and towards the end, you feel those abdominal muscles turn on and the pelvis sort of tilt forward. So now you can feel what those abdominals turned on actually feels like. But that's not all you want to do with core bracing. Core bracing also includes pressure. So now we've got those abdominal muscles turned on. We want to pull up on our pelvic floor. So you want to pull those muscles that you just turned on, you want to pull them up, okay? And you want to fill your belly with air, but not push out, because that can actually create a distended abdomen that you're trying not to have, right? You're trying for that kind of lean look, and so we don't want to distend the belly. We want to build that pressure though. So everything's turned on now, pulled up, and now I've filled my abdomen with air in order to perform this movement. So in action. Now, did you see what happened there? You see my pelvis tilt and you saw my upper abdomen area fill with air, but I didn't push it out, okay? I'm gonna hold that air in there. Now, if you are prenatal training, you don't wanna hold your breath during any movements, but you do want to contract your core. So you're doing that same thing and pulling the core in while you blow out that air, and you wanna hold it there while you do the movements without holding your breath. So that is the key to core bracing. You do not want to hold your breath during that. The next thing to consider with the bodyweight squat is that you want to find your squat stance. So your squat does not need to be narrow with toes pointed forward. It does not need to be super wide with toes pointed out. You need to find the stance that works best for you, that helps your toes or your knees track in line with your toes. Now, they do not have to, if you go forward, that movement feels a little unnatural, right? So for me, I like to go a little bit wider than hip width, and I like to turn my toes out. And then I make sure my knees are also turned out. Once you found your squat stance, your core is braced, and you're ready to start the descent of the movement, you're going to hip hinge, start by like you're sitting back into a chair, right? And break at the knees. So the hips go first and then the knees. And coming up is the opposite. All right? So for me, this looks like so you notice how my knees don't cave in. We don't want the knees to cave in. That can cause injury. That can cause some pressure on the lower back. We want and some issues with the hips. We want to make sure that those knees stay out. If I were to do a narrow squat, all right, my knees could track in line with toes, but I really can't get to that depth that I'm looking for, which is why I take a wider stance, because that is just the way anatomically that my body was built. I take that wider stance. I do that breathing even though I don't have a bunch of weight, because I always want to remember how to brace properly and how to do a squat properly. Hips, knees. You want to keep a neutral back, so you do not want a huge arch in your back when you're doing these, and you want to maintain a neutral gaze. So keep your head in line with your spine. Don't look up, don't look down. Try to keep in line with the way that your spine is naturally moving in this movement. And that's the bodyweight squat.